This episode is brought to you by San Pellegrino Ciao. A gift from Italy to your home. San Pellegrino Ciao is a flavored sparkling water made with real fruit juice, finished with a pinch of Sicilian salt for a perfectly balanced taste. So which flavor will you choose? Peach, lime, blood orange, cherry, or maybe the all-new limoncello? Crafted in Italy with 0 grams of added sugar. San Pellegrino Ciao. Buy it now.
Quiet Riot.
Hello and welcome to Quiet Riot Sunday School's mini slider to Thursday's Big Burger.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Kenny, surviving on a 14-minute sleep over the last 6 days.
Kenny, you drove all the way up to Scotland overnight with a little stop in a lay-by so we could record.
Fuck my life, as they say.
You love it, really, don't you?
When I was a kid, I dreamed of having a recording studio inside an old beat-up Mercedes around the back of a Glasgow petrol station. I've achieved all my ambitions in life while the rain was pissing down.
And then you got your parents to Scotland, and of course, the football was on.
Do you know what happened last night? Myself and my dad sat down to watch the football. Mum sensibly went to bed. She knows this script from football games past. And we watched the entire game, and I think we spoke twice in the entire 90, 100 minutes, however long it took.
It's soul-destroying when you concede so early, isn't it? Because then you just have to watch the thing with sort of vanishing, shriveling hope.
It was strange because Morocco are the sixth best team in the world.
Yeah.
They're as good as they're neck and neck with Brazil, in terms of rankings.
Yeah, they're not neck and neck with Brazil in any other terms, let me tell you.
In footballing terms, they're actually better than Brazil right now. So there's probably a lesson for everybody. But yeah, in any other world, Scotland playing a team like Morocco in a strange stadium and coming away with a 1-0 defeat, it would be the stuff of miracles. We'd be going, do you know what? We didn't get any points, but, 1-0 against a top 6 team. No, it's just not like that, though, is it?
But now you're going into the final game needing a draw from Brazil. How would you rate the chances of that?
I mean, Scotland genuinely, I think, have a better chance against Brazil than they had against Morocco. We've played Brazil in the World Cup a few times, and we've come away with better results than were expected. But the thing about the Scotland jamboree is that an awful lot of fans were still, their mindset was, we're here for the party, we're going to enjoy it, we're going to make the best of a bad situation.
Have you heard all about the jobby thing?
What jobby thing? What's the jobby thing? Have I missed this?
So apparently the Scottish fans have found a liquor store in Boston called Jobby. and they're all taking selfies out in front of it. It's become massively famous. And could you explain to listeners who are not familiar with the Glasgow vernacular?
Jobby in Scotland is a number 2. I'm just off. I'm desperate for a big jobby would mean I require a visit to the gentleman's facilities, please.
So apparently this liquor store in Boston has now become world famous.
Well, that's the most Scottish thing ever.
Isn't it? So listeners, if you are fond of supporting lost causes...
Boo, Alex.
why not go over to ko-fi.com/quietriotpod and become a monthly sponsor for a $5 a month. It helps us to make all of our content available to everyone for free.
All right, so as you've gathered, it's been quite an eventful week, and we have rather spoiled people with our remarkable wisdom from the back of petrol stations at 4:30 in the morning, quite a lot already. What should we talk about today that doesn't send people into, oh my God, here they are on this topic again?
I have heard several podcasts in the last 24 hours, and there's something very undignified about this sort of dance they're doing on future Starmer's grave. I find it really distasteful, actually, because it's not a thing to be celebrating. Even if you're not a Starmer fan, the instability it will bring to the country is not anything to be proud of. And there's nothing to be done now except wait. And so what's the point of doing another bit of analysis that goes, oh, yeah, Starmer, yeah, he's definitely going, isn't he terrible? I mean, enough of that. It's boring.
Do we have a grown-up alternative?
Yeah, I thought we could look a little closer at the fragmentation of the right of politics.
Oh, okay.
That I think is being increasingly revealed, and especially by this set of by-election results.
I'm all for that. And as promised, we're going to return to guest Emma Harrison. We're also going to be magically joined by Naomi for a deep dive into all the different options for one of our favourite topics, electoral reform.
Here is one we prepared earlier. Finally, for putting, I think, on a lighter note, and apropos of nothing in particular, Kenny.
What are you setting up?
We ponder the question, what happens when you get the job you have always wanted and it turns out you are shite at it?
That's essentially every job I've ever had. Let's dive in. Quiet, Riot.
Whisper it, but Reform UK are in trouble. Their overall poll rating is hovering around 5 to 6 points below where it was stable this time last year. Restore UK, which so far had been nibbling at the right flank, is now biting off sizable chunks. And even the Conservatives are celebrating some victory, while Nigel Farage seems unable to convert chances in front of a pretty open goal. This, of course, does not mean there might not be a resurgence, a strategy is not being hatched that might be successful, that events might not conspire to boost reform again, but right here, right now, the certainty and inevitability with which mainstream media have treated the idea of Prime Minister Farage looks to me to have been very premature. If we are to effectively fight off the far right, not just defend against it, but push it back down to the fringe percentages that it deserves, we have to understand what works and what doesn't.
Well, the Makerfield by-election was a dramatic, emphatic win for Andy Burnham, with a vote share that nobody could quite see coming. What really happened here is it was vote Burnham, get Starmer out, which, of course, was our campaign message leading up to the locals on the 7th of May. So we were slightly hoist with our own petard. I'm disappointed by that, no question about it. But I would say this, there's a couple of thousand voters there who would normally have gone out and voted Reform that voted Restore. And I would say directly to them, what do you want? We are the challenger party to the left in this country. And I would urge you to think again. I really, really would. In Scotland, we were pleased to come second in Arbroath, but the Conservatives had a win in Aberdeen South. Well, good for them. There's an irony, though, that it was Jeremy Hunt's budget that destroyed investment in the North Sea. A disappointing morning, but we keep going.
Kenny, am I alone in detecting none of the usual political earthquake swagger in Farage's response to this set of by-election results, and more than a little hint of a whine?
Oh, we love to see it, don't we? Because that wasn't earthquake Farage. He's had a tricky start to the summer on many levels, and this was kind of the jobby icing on the cake, to come back to that particular word. Or perhaps the ref ruined it. Maybe that's the politer way to put it. I mean, the key thing here this week was expectations, I think. Reform had been talking this up as a real test and a real opportunity. Makerfield, lest we forget, was exactly the kind of seat that they're meant to be gobbling up. Post-industrial, it's frustrated with Labour, a very, very strong Reform vote in the local elections, and then Andy Burnham gets 55% of the vote. Now, Reform did increase the vote share a tiny little bit. It wasn't a wipeout by any stretch of the imagination. But as you've said, it was a failure to convert in football terms. Farage really did think that he was one-on-one with a keeper. And then he somehow hoofed it into row Z. And I, for one, was cheering very loudly from Rose Head behind the goal there.
By the way, I thought it was very funny that Farage put out this video that we heard on the results of the election, and he congratulated his party for coming second in Arbroath, which it didn't.
Did he? Facts. Who cares about facts in Farage's world?
It's like a 1.5 minute video. How difficult is it to actually know how your party did in 3 by-elections? Anyway, let's put that to one side, okay? Because, you know, what you were saying about them saying this was a big opportunity, they did the same thing in the previous by-election.
That's right.
They did the same in the Gordon and Denton by-election, and they did the same in Caerphilly as well. They started off their campaign there by going, wow, we're going to show them, we're going to absolutely smash this, and then started withdrawing basically over the next few weeks as they saw the polls coming in, and got to a place where by the time the result was announced, they were like, well, it was always a very small chance.
No, I mean, confidence is important in politics. Let's not kid ourselves. But at the same time, if you're wanting to be seen as a challenger party, not being seen as another establishment party is also very important. And I think that's where they are.
And you may remember that I started pointing this out really last autumn, didn't I?
Yeah.
From September, October onwards, I started saying that it seems to me a huge strategic error for them to be going, this is the shadow home secretary, because we are a government in waiting, when at the same time you're saying we're plucky nobodies and we might just do it.
Yeah.
And they still don't get it. They
don't.
still go into Makerfield going, whoa, we're going to smash this.
I mean, it's not the only factor that I think is squishing their support.
What else do you think is going on?
I think, there are three, there might even be four other factors. I mean, first up is a really obvious one. It's the quality of the candidates. And we saw this in Makerfield, that once you put people who are very green politically in front of the cameras and in front of the electorate, everything starts to fall apart really quickly. And, Reform still often, maybe always still look like a media vehicle that are trying to sort of cosplay as a genuine national party. That's worked when Farage himself has been on camera, but it really doesn't translate well when actual candidates start getting scrutiny. So that's part one. They just don't have the quality in their team at this stage.
I have seen a lot of people saying that this will be a much bigger problem for them come the general election, because if they can't select one decent candidate, how are they going to select 600? I don't think that's how it works. I think when they selected one candidate, all the attention is on that one person. When they select 600, there will just be a lot of general noise and people pointing out their various old tweets and Facebook posts. So it will become quite a fog of noise that they might get away with, actually. It might be easier for them.
That's a fair point.
So your second factor.
In Makerfield, tactical voting was huge. In fact, we took it for granted, didn't we, that the Greens and the Lib Dems were just going to say, do you know what? Pretend that we're not running. Let's just behave like grown-ups and unite to keep the Farage party out. The voters pretty much recognised their job was stop reform, and they acted accordingly. So that's a key issue. And if voters get into that as a habit, that's a problem for Farage. That really is. Third, we shouldn't ignore Restore Britain on the fringes, but big enough to count as a rival lane on the right. It doesn't need to win seats. It just needs to take 4, 5, 6, 7% of the vote. And particularly in the wrong contests, that could be incredibly problematic for Farage. And then finally, I wonder if Reform are starting to get near the limits of what I describe as sort of pure grievance politics. Anger is a really, really effective accelerant, but it's a rubbish building material. And at some point, even angry voters are going to start asking, look, do these people actually look like a government? And at the moment, Reform's answer hasn't really moved on that much from, like, here's Nigel with a pint in front of a flag.
I like that.
It's worked for 10 years, hasn't it?
It's the sum total of their profile, isn't it? I think there's one more thing in play. So, you know me, I like my data. So I went and had a look at the very precise aggregate polling. And I'm looking at the graph right now. So there was a period from about April last year to about September last year where it was reliably 30% and above, 30 or 31%, their aggregate total. And then it began to slide. And it began to slide, and that has never recovered from that point. So I tried to remember what was going on round about end of August, September, October, that might have meant the shine was beginning to come off. There were two notable things going on. One was that all the facts about Farage as a schoolboy in Dulwich were beginning to really, really bubble up and capture the news. And the second thing is that their conference happened. And I remember thinking and saying at the time, we've got it on record, people. You can go back and listen to the episode that we did after their conference. I remember saying at the time that I'm not sure that parading someone like Nadine Dorries or Jake Berry, we're not beginning to make them look like a a sort of retirement plan for failed Tories.
It started to look a bit like a car boot sale, didn't it?
Yeah, and they carried that on for quite a long time, all the way to January, February 26, when they introduced people like Robert Jenrick and Nadeem Zahawi. And that actually corresponds to their drop. Their share has kind of restabilized around about 25% after that and has been relatively steady after that. But it was that period that was the slide. And I know correlation is not causation, of course. I know the things that go into this will be much more complicated. But it does seem to me that the things that appeared to be serious strategic errors at the time turned out to have been strategic errors.
Yes. The assumption, Alex, has always been that high turnout, and let's remind ourselves, the turnout in Makerfield was huge this week. We've always assumed that high turnout is really good for parties who are coming in from the fringes to the mainstream, like Reform. Do you think that assumption still holds?
No, I don't think it does. And I think it's because of that quality of polarization, Farage's Marmite character, that it motivates as many people to vote against him, or more, actually, in most cases, than to vote for him. And so I don't think that theory still holds. I think some of the newcomers may have actually voted Restore. That might be the party that got the votes of people who feel truly disaffected, and some of them might have voted Burnham, because he's a well-known figure in that part of the world. And so, no, I don't think it's true anymore. And everyone was saying at the start of the evening that high turnout means this will be much closer than people thought. And it wasn't. It was a lot less close than people thought. It was 20 points apart.
The lesson isn't really high turnout good or high turnout bad. I think that the lesson from this week is that under first past the post, the side that consolidates its bloc wins. So, Labour consolidated the anti-reform bloc incredibly effectively.
Just as the Greens did in Gorton and Denton, just as Plaid Cymru did in Caerphilly.
And at the same time, Reform was not only failing to consolidate the right, Reform was watching, Rupert Lowe in particular, but it was watching the right start to creak and come further apart rather than consolidating at all. So I think consolidation, certainly for the next few months, is going to be an incredibly important topic for anybody that finds themselves in an electoral situation in this country.
Quiet Riot. Starting or growing your own business can be intimidating and lonely at times. Your to-do list may feel endless with new tasks, and lists can easily begin to overrun your life. So finding the right tool that not only helps you out, but simplifies everything as a built-in business partner can be a game changer. For millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US. From household names like Gymshark, Rare Beauty, and Heinz, to brands just getting started. Shopify has hundreds of ready-to-use templates that can help you build a beautiful online store that matches your brand's style. And you can tackle all the important tasks in one place, from inventory to payments to analytics and more. No need to save multiple websites or try to figure out what platform is hosting the tool that you need. And if people haven't heard about your brand, you can get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you, with easy-to-run email and social media campaigns to reach customers wherever they're scrolling or strolling. Start your business today with the industry's best business partner, Shopify, and start hearing. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/realm. Go to shopify.com/realm. That's shopify.com/realm.
Quiet Riot. What does Douglas's win mean? Throughout this campaign, we saw the media focused on the by-election that was happening in Makerfield. And he said, and I said, that the Makerfield by-election was about one man's job. The Aberdeen South by-election was about thousands of jobs all over the country, but especially in the oil and gas sector. And what this means is that we have won that referendum on oil and gas. Aberdeen has sent a message to the Labour government and to the SNP that we will not be ignored. Aberdeen will not be ignored. The sector will not be ignored.
Kenny, have I been too harsh on Kemi Badenoch? Are the Conservatives on the verge of a big revival, do you think?
I mean, too harsh. If we're being generous, Conservatives played a blinder in Aberdeen South. On the verge of a revival, at that point I start to say, look, steady on. They're still not the party of the right. They're still the challenger party there. We shouldn't be handing out commemorative mugs because they won a by-election on the back of a row about fossil fuels.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Aberdeen South was genuinely good for the Conservatives. It was a real win. It was a symbolic win. It was a really clean message on oil, on gas, jobs, on net zero. I think it was a reminder of how effective single-issue campaigns can be as well. When you get that cut through and the electorate actually know what they're voting on. It's nice and simple. Good news has been hard to come by for a long time for that party. And Badenoch, she can now say, look, if we find the right issue and we find seats where reforms struggle to organise properly, which will be a lot of seats, we can still win. We were all surprised by how effectively they delivered that particular result in Aberdeen. It tells its own story, of course, the fact that we were surprised by a Conservative victory in that part of Aberdeen, which is wealthy. It's not a place that's without Conservative supporters, and historically, there's been plenty of blue rosettes around that part of the world.
I'm surprised at how little grief they've had over the result in Makerfield, to be honest, because I get what they're saying. This was never going to be a seat that we could have won. Yeah, but this was a seat in which you were the opposition, for the last however many decades.
Yeah.
It's only in the last election that reform have emerged. But before that, the 2019 election, Labour got 45% and the Tories got 35%.
Yeah.
So, yes, it may not have been competitive or marginal, but you were a very creditable second.
Yeah.
And now you're getting below 2%. You're being replaced by another party.
The Conservatives are benefiting from expectation management these days, though, in much the same way that Farage is struggling with expectation management and talking up his chances way too much. The Conservatives are benefiting from the fact that the country as a whole expects them to be a dumpster fire. They anticipate that it's just going to be a shambles, that Reform are going to steal their lunch and their dinner and their dog as well. And so when a disaster does happen, the result is, well, of course it did. It's a shrug. What about Rupert Lowe himself? What's the rationale?
I don't know. Is there any rational, reasonable, realistic scenario in which Rupert Lowe comes to replace, Restore UK comes to replace Reform UK as the insurgent right-wing party? I don't think there is.
There's not.
This feels like a really personal battle. This feels like absolute bitterness.
Oh, it's personal with Rupert Lowe. Very much.
For the way it sort of fell apart. So maybe the aim is simply to dislodge Farage as leader of Reform UK so that he can come back into the fold.
I think it's just dick politics. Nothing more and nothing less. Rupert Lowe has got an axe to grind with Farage. He's quite clear that he was kicked out by Farage, and he hates that fact. And he's not a man with a small ego, let's face it. And he's not a man with a small bank account. It's dick politics. There isn't a great vision. There isn't a great implementable vision for the country. What there is a vision to make Farage hurt, to make him cry, to make him squeal.
But there is money going into it.
Yeah.
And you would think that the people putting the money into it would have some kind of strategic reason for doing so. Is there strategic reason to pull Farage further to the right or to prevent him from drifting more into centre-right ground? Is it to just keep the agenda going for that grievance politics? I don't understand what it is. What is it they're trying to do?
That's a $64,000 question.
It's very annoying when people do things that have no rhyme or reason.
I think, if I was going to...
Even though this is actually really good, and I applaud Rupert Lowe for being a dick, but why?
I think the agenda thing is very important. The people putting money in behind the scenes have an agenda that they want to push. And we know that right-wing agendas are very well-funded agendas. But for those agendas to work and for the politics of it to work, we have to come back to this idea of being the outsiders, the challengers, the plucky upstarts. And what I think is happening is that Rupert Lowe is being set up as Nigel Farage's Nigel Farage. It's becoming very meta in that respect. And in exactly the same way that the Conservatives will find it and have found it impossible to outflank Farage on the right because Farage can just go farther right. Farage is not going to be able to outflank Rupert Lowe on the right, which leaves him in a very interesting and uncomfortable position.
Is there a sense also that the shine of novelty is coming off a little bit?
Completely.
The media don't seem to cover him in the same way in the last few weeks.
Yeah, but he's been hiding in the last few weeks, hasn't he? When the row over his that 5 million donation cropped up, all of a sudden, Mr. standing with a pint in front of a flag wasn't available to be standing in front of a flag with a pint quite so much. So there's a very definite pulling back by Farage. Now, look, last year he did the same thing where he buggered off while Parliament was in session and then focused quite hard on maintaining a media presence over the summer. And he got a free ride last year.
So in a strange way, maybe actually what's going on now with the Starmer-Burnham situation will have an interesting side effect in taking media away from what Farage would have been planning for the summer with daily press conferences, because they will be more interested in the court intrigue going on inside the Labour Party. And if there is a new prime minister, they will be very interested in the opening few weeks of that and a new cabinet being put together. So actually, maybe there is a weird positive side effect in possibly Burnham coming in at this stage, that he also suffocates Farage of that summer oxygen that's been so important for him.
That will happen because there's a finite number of spaces and front pages for newspapers, and Labour's infighting is always going to make big headlines in the media in this country. There's another thing, there's a very important point here, is that last year Farage could talk about what Farage wanted to talk about. He could blame brown people and boats for all the country's ills. He could do that. And that as an issue was sufficient for him to be able to host these regular press conferences and have them his own way, really. Now there are genuine questions about Farage and about his party to be asked. Proper questions because of the successes they've had. You know, we've touched on the candidate scandals, but there are questions around the feasibility of what's going on. There are questions around Restore. There are questions, genuine questions around the run that you highlighted of by-election disappointments as well. In other words, there are questions that even relatively benign journalists are going to start feeling duty-bound to throw his way. And he doesn't like it. He
really doesn't.
He doesn't respond well. The man needs media training. You know, he really does, because he gets huffy very, very quickly.
Now, we started by saying we're not going to do the Starmer-Burnham thing, but let's do a short update, I guess. All quiet on the Western Front is the report. Andy Burnham has gone away to spend the weekend with his family. Keir Starmer has gone to Chequers to spend the weekend with his family. There is an expectation that the two might meet early next week. There is definitely a holding back of fire from senior figures. So they've given him a little bit of grace to decide to go, I think, very much so. And it's, like I said, I don't think it's anything to be celebrated, but prime ministers, especially in a system like our constitutional setup, where they are not directly elected, you know, they are a little bit like Tinkerbell. They need their MPs to believe in them. And if their MPs cease to believe in them, there is no way for them to sustainably stay in charge of the party. So I think there is now a wide acceptance that Starmer will go.
From Labour's perspective, do we think that the summer is an ideal time to get the nuts and bolts of a leadership battle out of the way? The summertime when Parliament is in recess.
I don't think there will be a battle, Kenny. I really don't. I don't. I think the Burnham team actually seem to want a bit more time to organize themselves rather than be thrown in at the deep end, which explains why one of the stories that emerged over the last few days was that Starmer was threatening the Burnham side of things that he was going to go straight away and resign as an MP, creating another by-election. And apparently that was being used as a weapon against them. So they don't want him to go straight away. They don't want there to be a big opportunity for a leadership election. They want almost a handover of power like there was between Blair and Brown.
Yes.
We know how that turned out, but that's what they want. They want, I think, probably Starmer to shepherd the party through the summer, handle that EU summit, that he's organized, build a bit more legacy in that, and then go just before Parliament is called back in the party conference. So I think my instinct tells me that's what we're looking at. But like I always say, I think people underestimate the personal factor and the personal agency, actually, a sitting prime minister has to say, no, I'm going to scorch the earth. And everyone is hoping that Starmer is not going to do that. Everyone is encouraging Starmer not to do that. But, look what happened with Johnson.
Yeah,
everyone was saying
right.
the same thing to Johnson. And he found a way, to extend it for so long that it did much more damage to his party. But also then, he's the one that pushed Liz Truss as his approved candidate because he had it in for Sunak. He didn't want to simply hand over power to Sunak. And what happened? Sunak ended up in power anyway, and all we got was that lettuce interlude.
It's a numbers game. Politics at the end, at its simplest, is always a numbers game. And Team Starmer know that as well.
Quiet Riot.
This episode is brought to you by Fox One. Watch all 104 matches of the FIFA World Cup live in 4K for just $19.99 a month with 3 days free. Build your own multi-view, choose up to 3 streams, and follow player spotlights. Stay on top of every moment with live stats, highlights, and instant replays. The FIFA World Cup, streaming live on Fox One. Offers are subject to change. See fox.com for complete terms and conditions.
Quiet Riot.
Make Votes Matter, the cross-party campaign for proportional representation, published a new report recently called What Could Future Electoral Systems Look Like? It moves the debate past whether first past the post is broken and onto the thornier question of what should replace it. The report tests 4 of the most commonly proposed alternatives: the single transferable vote, regional list PR, mixed systems such as additional member system, and a revised alternative vote plus, against the 10 principles of Make Votes Matter's Good Systems Agreement. The headline conclusion is blunt. Almost any well-designed PR system would be a significant improvement on what we've got now, and the best way forward is the National Commission on Electoral Reform to design and implement a new system. The 2024 election left more voters than ever effectively disenfranchised and saw Labour and the Conservatives record their lowest combined vote share in British electoral history. Yet a so-called change election did little to rebuild trust. Now the question of PR has been pulled right into the centre of Labour's own drama. With a leadership crisis underway, Andy Burnham, considered the frontrunner to be the next Labour leader if he wins his way back into Parliament, has restated his support for scrapping first past the post in The Observer, and where Streeting, his main potential challenger, has restated his support for PR too. So to unpack what the report actually recommends, where the Parliamentary Labour Party really sits on the issue, and what a returning Burnham might do about electoral reform and when, we are joined again by Emma Harrison, Chief Executive of Make Votes Matter, who published the report. Welcome back, Emma.
Hi, Naomi.
Emma, your new report deliberately steps past the is first past the post broken, because, come on.
It is.
And it asks what should replace it. Why was now the right moment, I think, to make that shift? And what is the most important takeaway from it that you want politicians listening to this, and we know many do?
Yeah, so I think the main driver right now is the level of dissatisfaction people are feeling with elections, politicians, institutions. We've got this all-time historic low trust in institutions, and people are just tired of politicians. They say they're all the same, which we all know they're not, but that's what they say. And the local elections that happened in May also really showed once more how first past the post is completely broken. So we thought, let's put our head above the parapet and start talking about systems. We're always told don't talk about systems. There's nothing more of a turn-off than talking about technical. But that's not what we're finding now. We're finding lots of people, particularly when we go to our street stalls and people who come through our mailbox saying, tell me more about systems. How do they work? Big question this week was, for example, which system would mean we wouldn't have by-elections, because by-elections cost a lot of money and people are tired of elections. So we pulled together this report, and also partly...
I presume a system with a list where you just go
Exactly.
down the list and pick the next person.
Exactly. I mean, and each system does work slightly differently. And I think that's why we wanted to try and give people a bit more of an understanding about which different system works for them, with some case studies as well. So one of the things that we have found as well is that people who have supported PR for years have suddenly gone, a bit worried, because what if it lets fascism in through the back door? And some people talk about at length about Israel and their system there. So wanted to really nail that some of these systems actually don't allow extremism in, because you can put thresholds. You have to achieve 10% of the vote. And why now really is this this need and this desire to change the system before the next election? Because we believe firmly that, a party can't win on 30% of the vote and have the support from the public. And that's what's looked like the next election will be. Someone winning on 30%.
And is that a little bit what we're seeing now, in effect? Or we're getting close to that because Labour's victory was so
34%.
wide but shallow.
Yes,
we're seeing
exactly.
a lack of, I guess, losers' consent in the country.
And we're seeing political parties are getting smarter at their targeting. They really understand it now. So they know which seat it is that they need to put the maximum effort in to win it. And, sod the rest of the country. It's just that, seat that matters.
Talking about the rest of the country, can I just ask, we just had a live test of two different systems in Scotland and in Wales with the regional parliament, or their national parliament elections, I should say. Was there a big takeaway for you from those two different systems?
Well, Labour would have done a lot worse in Wales if it had been under first past the post. So actually it was the fact that they had PR saved their skin a little bit. I think the interesting thing in Scotland, though, so they've got a mixed system. So they've got some seats are proportional and some are first past the post top up. And those top ups, again, has really been interesting, because political parties, the Greens particularly did this, really focused on those top ups and actually trying to win those. So I think
Tories did as well. That's
did.
the Peach
That's right.
ballot paper, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because they kept directly putting out broadcasts that were saying on that one.
I was going to say gaming the system, but it's not. It's actually looking at the strengths and weaknesses of the system from your own perspective.
Yes.
I mean, I love the report, Emma. At Best of Britain, we put out very similar stuff on all the options for EU affiliation, whether that's customs union, single market, full membership, the drawbacks, so that we can inform a public debate rooted in some kind of evidence. You've done this brilliant report. It does outline the different main systems, doesn't endorse any one of them. So USS STV, Regional SPR, AMS and AV+. For listeners who are not as steeped in it as you are, can you just give us a bit of a steer? Where do the real trade-offs between those four options lie? And is there one that comes out as a more practical fit potentially for Westminster?
I mean, the last question is the most important, but let's just have a quick run through of the systems. We'll start with AV+, because actually it's the one that lots of people have been talking about, because some of you will remember that Reform, Nigel Farage said that's the system he'd be interested in. It is the most untested system. And we think that it's probably the weakest system in many ways. And we've given a bit of analysis to it, but we've almost pushed it to the one side. So we just think that it's so untested, it'd be very difficult for us to implement. Okay, it was what the Jenkins Commission said, but it's basically the closest you can get first past the post.
It puts a new hat on first past the post.
Yes.
And it is the one that we tried last time and people didn't go for. No?
Last time was AV without the plus.
Without the plus.
And I think that's the thing. So, the AV is just like, can you get to 50% effectively?
Yeah.
And that's it. And, it's still majority, but it's like a tiny majority. It's the most smallest majority.
It's at least a post. There is no post in first past the post, as I always bang on about.
Well, absolutely. So that one we sort of push aside a bit. The mixed member system, MMS, is interesting because what they have is you can have regional lists where candidates can be listed as well. So you can pick both you go for your party, you can go for your individual, but the top up is the key thing.
Yeah.
And this is where lots of politicians are very comfortable, because it's still that little element of gaming the system.
Yeah.
Constituency link,
all of those things. And I think because it works relatively well in Scotland, that people would feel quite comfortable with that
Yeah.
system.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
they
yeah.
know it.
If it's good
They
enough for
can solid, it
Scotland,
should be
why
good
isn't it good enough
Yeah,
for
yeah,
England?
Yeah,
yeah,
it would
yeah.
also kind of neutralize people would find this very complicated, because the instant reply would be, are you saying...
If Kenny can get his head around it.
Are you saying Scotland?
I wasn't going for that, Kenny. This is scandalous. They're trying to drive a wedge.
There's an interesting thing about the Scottish system, of course, and that's if you've got an MSP is in Scotland on the regional list and you don't particularly like them, but they're on the party list, you're stuck with them. If your party leader is looking like they're on a shaky peg, you stick them at the top of your party list and you can't vote them out.
Yeah.
So you get stuck with career politicians in there for the duration.
So that's the regional list.
Well,
Pia.
so that's another one is the regional list, and I think this is where it's really important.
So this was the additional member
system.
Yeah, okay.
So the regional list, I think, could be really exciting. It could be, however, only if it's an open list. Because what happens is sometimes that these lists are created by the party, locked down, closed, and that's where you put your career politicians at the top, and you put the people you're giving a sop to at the bottom.
So an open list would have what? A primary, basically.
You'd be able to, as a voter, be able to pick the people you want.
Right.
So if number 7 is the person everyone in your community wants, because it's not the party's, it might not be the party's first pick, you can vote for those.
Right.
It does give more freedom. That retains that idea of that constituency personal list, a personal connection. You'd want to have about sort of 5 members per big constituency, and it gets complicated. And I think this is where the biggest challenge is, because with like an additional member system, multi-member system, you can pretty much look at the UK as it is, carve it up into those regions already. Something like a regional list, you'd probably have to do a bit more work. And then comes a lot of people's favourite is the single transferable vote, STV. So without question, that is the most proportionate system.
Yeah.
So if you're interested, which most of us are in proportionality, that's the system you go for. It's really great for diversity, and it's really great for voter choice. The challenge is a lot of people are saying, can we do it on the current boundaries? Because you're having to pull together quite big regions and then have 6 to 7, sorry, I think it's 5 to 7 actually, MPs per region.
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot of work, but I think it's a surmountable problem. Yeah. And I think it's very easy to say, boundary commissions.
Which system is the new Welsh system closest to?
That's a right old mess,
it's a real mess. And I think this is the problem. So again, there was a closed list system in it, and it's counted under de Hont. I know some people were like waving their little flags going yay. so there is but it hasn't universally succeeded, I think, because of this closed down system of the party selecting them.
And how about the old European Parliament voting system?
That was de Hont.
Right, okay, fine.
And interestingly, single transferable vote was a precursor to getting the Good Friday Agreement over the line in Northern Ireland back in the late 90s, because of that proportionality and needing to redress the balance between two pretty divided communities, one that had not had anywhere near the representation that the other one had had.
Do we have any elections in the UK that are kind of close to it? Maybe the London mayoral election as it used to be, or...
Well, in Northern Ireland, the Northern Ireland Assembly elections are under STV.
Right, so
we have got examples, and that's the other thing. So within the report, we say that actually all of these systems, in one way or another, have been used.
Tried,
So it's not like we're.
And the parties often use STV themselves in internal elections.
Interesting.
They do, yeah. And you will notice when you read the report, and please do read it, is that we've completely said no to supplementary vote, which has just been brought back in for mayoral elections here in the UK. But it's not really a proportional system. It's just, you can mark 1 or 2 preference votes. That's what you get. It is much better than first past the post, but let's be frank, anything's better than it. But it's not a proportional
could you
system.
live with supplementary vote as a stepping stone to more proportionate system later down the line? Like if Andy Burnham, who has talked up electoral reform recently rather than pure PR, and let's see where he goes on that, but if he was to land on, look, supplementary vote's good enough for the mayorals, that means it's probably good enough for Westminster, let's go for that now and we'll think about PR in the future.
I think it would be a mistake, but I could live with it. So I think it would be a mistake, because I think that, when a change happens, I mean, obviously I'm going to contradict myself because the Tories overturned SV for mayoral, brought back first past the post. Normally the system sticks. But right now, I think the threat to democracy is so huge, and there is a real challenge around democratic legitimacy because of the parties who win on these tiny proportions of the vote, it would be better than nothing. What I think is the important thing is that Andy Burnham does think really hard about what democracy means for people and listens to what the people say. Because time and time again, my frustration is we talk about it as in what's it mean for the Tories? What's it mean for Lib Dems? Yeah. What does the question is, what's it mean to voters?
Quiet Riot.
Hey, Fidelity. What's it cost to invest with the Fidelity app?
Start with as little as $1 with no account fees or trade commissions on U.S. stocks and ETFs.
That's music to my ears.
I can only talk.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Zero account fees apply to retail brokerage accounts only. $0 commission does not apply to customers designated by Fidelity as a professional equity trader. A limited number of ETFs are subject to a service fee of $100. See details at fidelity.com/commissions. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC.
Quiet Riot.
Let's do a plot spoiler on the report for those people who are not going to read it. Yeah. Shame on you all. There is a central recommendation to the report, and that's a recommendation that a National Commission for Electoral Reform is set up, rather than just whoever's Prime Minister going and grabbing a solution off the shelf. Are you able to shed any light on what that commission might look like? And why do you think that that's the right route, rather than a straightforward government decision or, and I can't believe I'm saying this, another referendum?
Oh, please, no referendum, because the last referendum we had worked out so well, didn't it?
And the one before
that. The idea behind a National Commission is not just about, again, like the academics and the politicians, but it's about the people. And what we've been thinking through a lot is about how do you build up trust in our democracy? Because what scares me is the amount of people who just say, I just want to vote once and never again. And you hear that more and more and more. Yeah. My party's in, that's it, stop voting. So we want to give the opportunity for the public to really deeply think about what democracy means for them and try and get people to stop thinking about it just being one vote on one day, because democracy isn't just a ballot box, it's a whole process. So there's that element. Then, of course, we've got a list of academics who really want to talk about this and think through and think about it from that institutional point of view. How does it work? How can it improve, again, enhance our democracy? So there's going to be an academic sort of feeling to it. And then the idea is, as well, is to really think through sort of like the institutional impact. What's it mean for the civil service? What does it mean for lawmaking? How does that need to change? Does it need to change? Yeah. But this can be done quite quickly. I think, because when I say that, it probably sounds like, it feels quite overwhelming. Yeah. But this wouldn't be the first commission on electoral reform.
No. And you mentioned the Jenkins Commission.
Absolutely.
Earlier.
But also, we have had 7 Representation of the People's Acts since 1980. We've had 7 of them. We have talked about this a lot. You will see there was actually a great programme on the BBC on Radio 4 the other day about the long view about electoral reform, and it talked about how often we've discussed this. So I think a lot of evidence is already there. Yeah. That can be tabled. What would we need, though, ideally we want this to be government commissioned because we want them to take it seriously. But if the government won't do it, but, Andy Burnham, if he becomes PM, has said he will do it, we can do it independently because we think it just needs to happen. Because if we don't talk about democracy, the legitimacy of our voting system, is at risk.
On Andy Burnham and him having said that he would pursue a national commission, he has restated his support for electoral reform during the campaign for Makerfield. How far do you actually trust him to push electoral reform, and what would you want to see from him maybe in his first 100 days? Because it feels like there might be a risk that his version of electoral reform could stop short, as I mentioned earlier, of full PR.
Andy's been on a journey around proportional representation, quite like a lot of people. He wasn't necessarily a supporter at first, and then he's learnt more and more about it, and now
and been elected under it as Great Commissioner.
Oh, that's true. So he has experience, as it were, as an electee of it as well. That's interesting.
And I think, we talk about Manchesterism all the time, but, that idea of collaborative working. So I think he really gets that. So I actually really trust that when he says he wants to do it, he wants to do it. So that is number one, tick. 100 days. His first thing if the bill's not gone through, like the Representation of the People bill has not become an act, he should amend that to have a national commission put in. Yeah. To say that it needs to be on a statutory footing, because then that makes it much easier to turn into law quicker. And ultimately, that's all I care about. I think I said last time I was with you all, I just want it now.
And I think wanting PR before the next general election is crucial for protecting the country from authoritarian takeover. Populists only need to win once, and then they can change the system in their favour. And do away with democracy as we know it altogether.
We saw how many years it took in Hungary.
Right, exactly. And I think progressives always worry a lot about legitimacy and how it feels, and they don't want to, replicate bad behaviours of the other political parties. And that is all very admirable. But we have talked in this country a lot about needing to change our voting system. But what we keep on seeing is that men, because it has mainly been men, then change their mind as soon as they've got a sniff of power.
Yeah.
So, and I think that because Andy Burnham, through this Makerfield campaign, has actually talked a lot about electoral reform, it would be very difficult for him to do that.
Oh, I'll be verifying him until the photocopier was smoking.
But I think that, he has said that he'd want a mandate. And, I've been doing a bit of research about this. We haven't got sort of like a codified policy on how you do regulatory and electoral reform in this country. There are these options. There's the referendum, which I think everyone just feels is the wrong thing because this is not a country that's used to referendum. You can have a constitutional commission, what we're calling, the National Commission. That is a really strong way of doing it. And then there is just doing it. Right.
Oh.
I know, radical thinking, but right now I think we could all name at least one thing that's been put into law that wasn't in a political manifesto.
Praise be Emma for saying this. Praise be. Can I just say, if we were sitting here with a Conservative government with 400 plus MPs and they wanted to do something, they would just fucking do it. Yeah. Let's just stop being so wet about this stuff. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree.
Sorry, not very quiet, right?
Quick, somebody feed Alex's high horse. Is there a private members' bill route here, or is that just a waste of time?
So very interesting, isn't it? Lauren Edwards has just reintroduced the assisted dying bill. And that was actually the other thing I hadn't mentioned, the Parliaments Acts. So the Parliament Acts is an opportunity to do something twice and then the Lords can't block it. Because the big debate that I've been having with some peers is that they feel like they couldn't let this go through, a bill on proportional representation, because it wasn't in the manifesto. And then I said, well, what if it comes to you twice? And they said, well, obviously the
rules is rules.
Rules is rules.
I mean,
I'm not going to take lessons in improving our democracy from an unappointed chamber, from an unelected chamber.
This is one of my worries and a slight risk about Andy
But they don't get to say what is democratic.
They don't, but I do wonder and worry sometimes whether he'd put Lords reform above proportional representation, because electoral reform, he's very clear that we have got to scrap the House of Lords. He's said it repeatedly.
Do it all.
Yeah, exactly.
Not either or.
Radical thinking. There we are.
I mean, come on. So their APPG on fair elections is the largest group in Parliament, the cross-party one, and it has strong Labour backing. But PR did not make it into the last manifesto from the conference floor. Where do you think they are as a body, looking at those 400 people? Like, what's the feeling in your waters?
Well, there's currently an amendment to the Representation of the People Bill for a national commission, except for it's not quite as bold as that. And 70 Labour MPs have signed it, and there's 134 MPs in total have signed it now. So that's a really, fifth of Parliament.
That is a chunk, isn't it?
And we've been calling people up and asking if they're going to sign the amendment. And they've been saying, let's see what happens in Makerfield. Because
one boss would like it and the other one wouldn't.
Exactly.
And I want a job.
And that's where politics always comes into play, right? So the people who have supported PR forever, the Luke Akehursts of this world, Anna Dixon, Alex Sobel, of course, are there signing, no problem. But there's a few fence-sitters who have asked for a bit more information now, because they think if the new boss wants it, we've got to make it work.
When both front runners in a leadership contest are backing electoral reform, surely we're at an actual turning point. I mean, surely.
I genuinely hope so, and I think so. But you can never rest on your laurels, can you? And good campaigners know that even if you secure a commitment, it's not the same as securing the change. So we are not going to back off and push and push and push. But the question will be, what form of proportional voting will they bring in? And, we have heard, because Andy is, used to SV, then he's talked about AV, and they are not proportional. As we'll have to keep on saying, they might be electoral reform, but they're not proportional.
Yeah. So for both of you, you have both organizationally, as campaigning organizations, moved on to assessing options. And it seems to me that implies that something has shifted in the basic debate. And I do see that there's not really very many people defending first past the post anymore. You don't get the usual, the link to the local MP. All of that seems to have faded a little bit. And I get the same sense from the Brexit debate. No one really is defending Brexit anymore. And so this move on to options, does it show that underneath all the uncertainty and the nihilism and the churn that we're seeing, there's actually an opportunity for real change?
I would say yes, but I'd caveat it with we, people who comment on these things, campaign on these things, and politicians really need to carefully listen to what the public want.
Yeah.
Because the public is in a very different place from them. Public have been pushing for PR, they want this, but they want it because they really want politicians to listen to them and be able to hold them to account. So it's not going to be an easy ride. And I think that being really engaging more with the public, talking to them more about what they really want is going to be enlightening and a bit frightening for some of the politicians.
I think on both the EU and PR, the public have been well ahead of politicians for a really long time. And this is just Parliament playing catch up. Okay, then there does seem to be quite a few different sequences of events that could happen between now and the next election with different obstacles in between. What is the one thing our listeners could most usefully do to help actually move the needle on PR?
We need more MPs to sign that amendment because it shows that people want to review the voting system. So just get to your MP, ask them to sign, I think it's N31, but Alex Sobel's amendment to the representation of the People's Bill, and that will drive forward more people. So please do that. You can find more information on the Make Votes Matter website.
Alex Sobel is just on the right side of everything, isn't he?
Quiet, Riot.
Now, there are some jobs in which success is inevitably going to be judged by how you fail. Being the manager of the Scottish football team is a case in point, as is being the manager of pretty much any football team. Even winning trophies or qualifying for finals for the first time in a generation isn't enough to guarantee that you're going to be judged kindly, far less celebrated. Now, political leadership is a similar beast in many ways. Even Churchill found this out to his cost in 1945, where the great British public said, "Thanks for all that war stuff, but frankly, we've had enough of you. On your way." But what about you then?
No.
What about let's drag it away from mere politicians and prime ministerial candidates. Have you ever taken on a job and then you've thought very quickly, but bugger me, this isn't going to end well?
Other than this one, yes, sometimes another side of my generally optimistic nature is that I think, I can learn things, I can get better at stuff, even if it seems a tall order. But there have been a couple of occasions where I thought, oh God, what have I done? A couple of productions, actually, that I've been involved in as an actor. There was one where I was trying to do genuinely an impossible accent. And it wasn't just me saying that. This was, the
What's an impossible accent?
The National Theatre's vocal coach was saying it's an impossible accent. Because, of course, it's all very well to describe something in a book, like Hanif Qureshi had done, about this character Ruiz that was a mixture that had come from partly from the Middle East, partly from Pakistan, but had grown up in a northern English town, but then implementing that into an accent. I mean, what does that person sound like?
That's North Wales, basically.
Well, it kind of veered that way at times. And then, I would sit down with a vocal coach and she would say, I don't... everything Yorkshire basically makes things want to go slack and wide and long. And everything Middle Eastern Pakistani wants everything to go clipped and short and sharp. And it's really, really hard to try and fathom what a mixture of those things looks like. So we ended up in a situation where we would go through the script and identify particular words to ring out as very Yorkshire and particular words to ring out as very Pakistani.
Flagpole words, yeah.
And particular words to ring out with a genuine Middle Eastern accent. And so we went through it and did that kind of embroidery work to try and put something together. But fuck me, I genuinely, there was a time when I thought, I'm not going to manage this. I'm not going to be able to do this. And then we were about to go on tour, and the first stop of this A tour for the National Theatre was Leeds. And then I was really, really, 6 months at the National Theatre is one thing. Going to Leeds and doing an accent that people might find recognizable, I guess, is a completely different thing. And I remember after the very first show, I came off stage, and a stagehand came up to me and said, "You're not really from Bradford, are you?" And I sort of smiled, and said, "No, you got me there." He went, "You're from Sheffield." And I was so happy. I don't think I've ever been happier in my life. And then the second time was a musical production that I was involved in, that it was like, I was just looking at the score and I was thinking, I have no idea why, having auditioned, they gave me this part. That other part was clearly the one that was for me. And this part, I'm looking at the high notes, and to be honest, unless a cattle prod is involved, I ain't getting there. There are many things that I can do with willpower, but be natural is not a thing I can do with willpower. You either have it or you haven't. More coping strategies came in, and we ended up transposing a few bits and pieces a little, and I did some softly floated falsetto notes and parts and sort of coped. How about you? Have you ever had a job that you thought, oh God, why would anyone hire me to do this?
Pretty much every job. I do have a few. I'm trying to think of one that I haven't actually mentioned on the show already. Do you know what? You mentioned being on stage. This is a cheaty one because it's before I left school.
I love the idea of you on stage.
Oh, do you know what? Everybody loved the idea of me on stage for some reason. The sort of standard clown is appearing. Where was it? Yeah, all these noises, all of that. I'd been press ganged into doing Gilbert and Sullivan at school, and we were doing literally press ganged as well.
Please say nothing more. There is nothing you can say that will improve what my mind has already constructed.
Have you got a little list? Yeah, so that's what happened. I got hauled off to the head of the music department's room, stuck next to a piano and told to sing, or I wasn't getting out to enjoy the rest of lunchtime. That was my introduction to Gilbert and Sullivan. Sing, doing a production of The Mikado. And I was in the chorus, which was the place for me to be quite honest. I could and make all my stupid noises to my heart's content. And it's always drowned out in a chorus, isn't it? That's the joy of So anyway, I'm learning my words for the chorus, and we had a fabulous English teacher who kept telling us off because we weren't learning our lines properly. And 10 days, I think it was, before the show was due to kick off, the guy who played Coco, the comic lead in The Mikado, decided, I'm out. Oh, no. And so I get taken to one side and told, that's the role for you. And I'm kind of looking at the head of the music department as if he's got two heads going, what do you mean that's the role for me? I'm uncomfortable standing at the back, chuntering away quietly to myself and hiding in the shadows. He says, no, we need a Coco or the show doesn't happen. There you go. There's a libretto. Off you go and learn your words, your lines. Oh, and by the way, we've got all the clothes are ordered already. So here's your outfit, which was a shiny affair with size 8 silver boots that were turned up at the end, like pointy winkle picker boots. I had size 10 feet. And so those boots, even before they were turned up at the end, were just not good. So I'm now stuck trying to learn words. 10 days pass. I've kind of got my lines. I know that off stage there's a prompt who can kind of help me along. And opening night is preceded by a night for parents and friends of the school and such like. So the official dry run, you know it.
Yeah.
And so up I rock. Everything is going okay. And then I got my first solo number. And I march out onto the stage. I stand in front of the orchestra. I look out. And really consciously, I'm thinking, I can't remember the first verse. I cannot remember the first verse. So rather than sort of running through any sort of exercises in my head that might try to help me prompt my brain into action, I'm staring at the conductor, who's the guy that got me and dragged me into this, and thinking, this is your own bloody fault what's about to unfold here, mate. So up goes the orchestra, the music starts, the conductor looks up at me, I've got no words, so I do a funny little dance in my size 8 boots. I'm kind of like lifting my knees up and jogging around the stage and just dancing like an arsehole, really. And the conductor is looking at me and imploring me. He's mouthing the words that I'm supposed to be singing. And I realise I can't come in halfway through the verse. So I carry on my funny, jaunty little dance, tick, 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 and realise that the boots make quite a nice noise on the stage. This is good. Second verse comes along, it all comes back in, I finish, and it's fine. Anyway, after the show, I go to see my mum and my dad, my brother and my sister had come along, and, go say, well, how was it? And they go, we loved it, and I said, was there any songs you liked? And they went, no. Do you know what the best part was? We loved that little dance you did right at the beginning. You should do more of that. And that was my career on stage. The arsehole dance in boots that were 2 sizes too small for me because I couldn't remember the words to the song. That was the high point of my acting career. An Oscar not coming my way, Alex. So you were safe as the thespian of the show.
That's brilliant. I long to see if there were any reviews in the student paper and whether you've kept them.
No. That's the whole point of a dry run, isn't it?
Like the apocryphal telegram that George Bernard Shaw sent to one actor that he believed was ruining one of his plays, said, watching you from the back of the theatre, wish you were here.
It's such a cruel world, isn't it?
Right, and that, my podcasty friends, is that for another edition of Sunday School. Thank you so much for joining us today, especially after a week which has been pretty relentless in its focus on all things political.
Of course, relentless politics is our speciality. So we will be back later in the week with a regular show, which hopefully will be something a bit special because it's 10 years since the Brexit vote happened.
If you're feeling generous, please head over to ka-fi.com/QuietRiotPod and become a supporter for the price of a cuppa.
And that's the price of a cup of tea, not a world cuppa, just in case you were wondering. No need to sell your partner's car. Like one Scottish football fan apparently did to fund his Tartan Army adventure. He sold his other half's car. Life comes at you fast when you're a Scottish football fan.
Bit of a jobby.
It was. It's money well spent. Don't forget our sister podcasts, Alex's Excellent Podyssey and Arthur's insightful Behind the Lines.
We love you more than an injury time penalty. Bye.
Quiet Riot is an audio production from Cooler Heads, written and produced by Andreou, Naomi Smith, and Kenny Campbell. Music by Mariana Sangeeta, artwork by Simona Canello, and edited by me, Alex Reese.
Quiet Riot.
While Nigel Farage seems unable to convert chances in front... Always one, isn't it?
There is.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.